At some point, I lost trust in the financial system. Today, I want to tell you why and tell you where I landed afterwards. What does it look like to lose trust in something? Betrayed trust? Maybe just things don't look like you thought they would look? Because somebody told you it was going to look that way, right? For us, that really happens when we look back at the last 25 to 30 years in the financial systems. See, we were told early on, invest in your 401k. That's the right place to be. Fund your retirement. That's how you do it. Well, let me tell you what's happened since. Looking back over time, there's a couple of things we got involved in. One was they said, invest in things, invest in businesses, invest in real estate. I took a lot of advice for a while. And since I wasn't ready to invest in real estate myself, I invested in someone else's real estate. And you know what? That was our first $35,000 mistake. See, we invested in a company that was doing some home flips and renovations, and that was in 2007. Timing was a little off. We scraped together every penny we could for that investment, ended up losing 30-ish thousand out of the 35,000 through someone I personally knew. I trusted them. We lost trust in them, but I also lost trust in real estate, and I wouldn't regain it for another 7 years, and I'd have to have my hands on it myself. Another investment that went south, as soon as I took my first gains, my very first gains from the last company I worked in, as soon as it was available to cash some of the stock out, I took that. And it wasn't even a public company at the time. This was a real trust issue, and I put it into a friend's business. That friend's wife got sick. He relapsed into a drug habit, and that $25,000 disappeared instantly. I've never gotten that money back, not from either of those situations, and that betrayed my trust. But there's another thing that I want to talk to you today about with trust as it relates to your retirement money. See, I'm not retired right now, but I'm getting old enough to see what's going to happen. And here's what's interesting. In your later years, your taxes will be lower, is what we're told. In your later years, you won't need as much money to live on. Inflation is proving us wrong. Taxes, deficits are proving us wrong. And the idea that your only income comes out of a 401k or Social Security or the combination thereof is also proving wrong. See, there are other things that drive up the amount of money that you may retire with. And as such, your tax rate may not be as low as you think. I'm starting to see this play out where required minimum distributions for people older than me are starting to drive up their taxes. Their taxable income continues to increase. And suddenly they're contending with, even though the tax rates are reduced right now, still dealing with higher taxes than they ever anticipated. They're forced to withdraw money from their 401k and the taxes are high. At the same time, I lost trust on something else, and that is the returns of the market. The market has been a runaway in 2026. It makes no sense to me unless I factor in kind of the loss of value of the dollar. But even then, this has been a runaway train for several years, and I just have not understood it. If I look back in time, when I needed the money to compound the most was back after I started working. See, what we're told is the 401k will grow over time. You put your money into the markets, it grows annually. For how long? Until you retire. Oh, there are some down years, but things will be okay. What they didn't tell me was there's a possibility and historical precedent for lost decades. And so from 2000 to 2010, that is a lost decade. There was no real gain in our 401ks. And historically, we have not lived up to any of the numbers that were promised to us, despite being fully invested in the market for most of that time. You see, we're told you can make 8, 10, 12% every year out of the market. Some years will be banner years that go much higher. And there's truth to that, and there's also not. See, all it takes is one great financial crisis of 2008 to derail things. One big crash. While the markets are up for any 40-year period of time, that is true. You may not get what you thought you'd get. Your path to $1 million that was described to us early on hasn't led to $1 million yet. And I've been investing in that 401k consistently. I've been investing for 25 years into that 401k. So what does that mean? It means don't necessarily trust that your investments will do what's described for you. See, anybody who's out there talking to you from the financial planning world has something to sell. They have a product to sell you. That product loses a certain percentage that goes back to the managers of those funds and the people selling them. Does that make them bad investments? No, but it's something to be aware of, because if you thought you were growing at 6% that year, but you lost 1.5% to the people managing, suddenly you're not making as much as you thought, and it doesn't compound as fast, and you just don't reach those goals. So while I want you to take more risk because I never took enough, I also want you to be cautious. Stay out of business with friends. Stay out of business with family as much as possible, because your investments there will likely be taken advantage of. I've got other stories from friends who can tell you a similar thing. Be careful to invest as much as you can into your 401ks, but at the same time, when you get to a certain threshold, make sure it's not going to exceed what you might take out later on. Because when you get to require minimum distributions, it may actually be more money in taxes than just taking the hit now, depending on your income. I'm actually looking at whether or not I can convert some of this over to Roth IRAs, because if I get out now, maybe I can grow more money tax-free. I wish I had invested much more post-tax money than the pre-tax money based on what I know today. As you look forward and you're thinking about your future, think about what you trust. Think about why you trust it. Think about the voices that are speaking to you and what they're saying. And are they coming at you from a sales perspective or from an experience perspective? There's always a way to manipulate the data. There's always a way to manipulate the charts. There's always a way to draw it just inside these lines so that it looks really good. Or to draw that boundary long enough where everything works out neatly. Not showing that if you end up 5 years short on that 40-year chart, you're in a lot of trouble. Trust, but verify. I guess that's probably the best way to put it. Thanks for joining me today on a rather difficult topic to discuss, because it's something that affected us, that has put us behind for a long time. I hope your experience is much better than ours and you have had far more investment success. Till next time, thanks for joining me.